Well, welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. Wow, what a year it's been so far. We just finished our 15th day of school and are just getting rolling in the remote learning. I'll tell you, we're starting to have this conversation a little earlier than I expected. As you know, the Snohomish Health Department contacted us actually on our first day of school on September 9th and said, start planning to bring back kids. We said from the very beginning that was our goal, that we wanted kids back in front of our teachers as soon as we could safely do so. And that's what we're working to do tonight, now that we've got the guidance from the Snohomish Health Department. Before we get rolling, I think it's important that we take just a minute to sit back and reflect and recognize the celebrations that we need to recognize at this time. First of all, I'd just like to recognize how remote learning is going. It's going smoother than expected, and I'm hearing many positive comments how staff are engaging students in the work that is being done. You know, prior to the beginning of the school, there was a lot of question to this. Many folks compared to what would happen this fall to what happened last spring when we were doing exactly what we were guided to do, and that was engaging students and do no harm. Well, I can tell you since the beginning of the school and the work that's being done that I haven't heard that comment, and we're off and rolling with remote learning. I understand that there's been some connection issues and technical issues and other bumps along the way, but all in all, it's going pretty smooth. And thank you to not only our staff, but our families and students who worked on that. I'm proud of our community. I've received many emails with concerns, and almost all of them start with a recognition of the situation that we're in. I really appreciate that understanding as we are trying to work together, and through communication and being flexible, we'll get through this stronger. So thank you for recognizing where we are. Our students, I've witnessed and been in the room with many classes that are going online from kindergarten clear up through the grades. And it's exciting to see our students engaged and ready to go. And they're doing a great job out there. With that being said, I know there are many more challenges. I know the remote learning is not what K-12 is supposed to be. K-12 education, pre-K-12 education, is about learning, socializing, relationship building, and being an active participant in our society and community. We truly need to get back to that, and we will in a safe manner. Before we start tonight's agenda, I want to emphasize a few points before we get started tonight. Safety. Safety is our number one concern, and I tell my team all the time as we work and really talk about how we can bring kids back in front of teachers that we can never lose sight of that. Although I truly want to have kids back in front of teachers, it must be done through all the guidelines and protocols that we've been given. We must and we will follow these guidelines. Secondly, we understand that and regrettably understand that a positive COVID case could happen in one of our schools. We are prepared and we're working with the Snohomish Health Department to respond if a situation would occur. We also know that we're going to have protocols in place and a strong communication system with you at home. Thirdly, we're going to ask you tonight to fill out a form and choose the placement of your child or children into one of our learning models, into either the new in-person that we're coming back to, or to stay in the remote, or to stay with the parent partnership. We're going to be asking you to fill out that form. Once this decision is made, we're going to ask that your students stay in that model until the next opportunity switch, which is going to be the end of the semester, which is around the end of January. Remember, tonight is just about K2. Or pre-K2, excuse me. We're only going to be asking pre-K2 parents to make this decision. And all of tonight is focused on that. Grades 3, 6 will come later. We said that's going to be mid to late November. And we'll make another town hall and walk us through that decision when we get there. Lastly, and this is a question I've been getting a lot on. I want it to be clear that through the process of bringing our elementary or pre-K2 kids back in person, that some students may have to change teachers. Please know that we're going to make every effort to minimize any switching. We understand the power of relationship building and the connection between the teacher and the student. And at this point, we don't know the extent of the possibility until all of our families have filled out that form and we have the data indicating where children are going to go. I will say that we have fantastic teachers and they've taken the first 15 days and have really built those relationships. But I also know that if your child has to change, we have fantastic teachers that are going to do the same thing. They're going to reach out and engage and build that relationship. And soon your child will have another great teacher supporting them in their educational journey. Tonight's town hall is going to be about an hour. It could be shorter, but we want to keep it to that and respect your time. The topics for tonight are the plan to bring pre-K2 back. We'll talk about that. And then the information needed for you as families to make the choice for which model your child is going to attend. I'm going to go through an agenda and, time permitting, answer questions that appear in the chat room. If we do not get to the questions, please know that they're going to guide us in the future. If there's some themes there, that'll be really in our minds as we make future decisions. Also, those questions from the chat room will be added to our FAQ page. So it's all being used, all input for us to move forward on. Before I get going with the agenda, I'd like to introduce who's on your screen. We have our Executive Director of Operations and Facilities, Ralph Rohr. Hi, Ralph. Our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Marion Mickelson. Our Executive Director of Special Services, Dr. Sarah Wolverton. And our Executive Director of Academic Services, Sean Stevenson. All right, so let's get started. Where we are now. Well, like I said, we're on our 15th day and really into remote and things are rolling for our students as we get rolling along. We hopefully will have a lot of the kinks figured out, but we know we have a lot more obstacles in the way as we move forward day by day. My goal through this whole beginning was to really be flexible, nimble, listen to those folks and make adjustments as we move on. And I hope you feel that at home, that that's what's been happening. I also hope that you have been able to contact us and get questions answered and get adjustments made so your student, your child can have the best education possible. So now let's talk about the pre-K2 plan. Remember, this all depends on the data and the guidance given by the Snohomish County Health Department. As of this point, this is how we're going to move forward. But as you know, the world we live in, anything can happen, and it may make some adjustments as we move through, and those numbers may change. All right. We would like to plan on all pre-K through second grade students to have the opportunity to come back every day starting the week of October 26th. I want to be specific with this because in speaking to principals, we want to spread those grade bands out just a little bit so they have time with each grade band before they all come back together. So on Monday, the 26th, one grade band will come back and they'll work for a couple of days. And then on Thursday, October 29th, the next grade band will join them and they'll be there. And then finally, the last grade band will come back on Tuesday, November 3rd, I believe it is, or November 2nd, November 3rd. And that way we'll stagger them out so it's an easier and a softer comeback into the school for these grade bands. So that's all coming up and that's what the plan is. Grades 3 through 6 will come back in hybrid, but not until mid or late November. And we'll wait till we get closer to that time to really explain what that process looks like. Secondary, I know there's a lot of questions about secondary and when it's coming back. Dr. Spitters with the Snohomish Health Department has stated that will come in further guidance when our numbers show that it's safe to bring those kids back. We'll keep in touch with you on that, but know that it's a ways out there yet. So let's prepare for pre-K second grade. And just a clarification, this is just for those families and that's who we're gonna ask for tonight. Of course, all families can listen. All right, so all families will be asked to pick a model that they want their child to attend. Whether it's remote, which is our current 100% online program, parent partnership, which is either online or in person 1 to 3 days a week, or the new in-person everyday program that we're going to be starting the week of October 26th. You're going to have to make a choice. There's a form to choose the model, and that will be going out this week, and all students must be placed. So why do all students need to be placed? We must create classes for all 3 programs. Right now, everybody's either in parent partnership or the remote program. As students choose or families choose for their students to move out of the remote program and into the in-person, we got to do a lot of shifting and creating of classes. It's not as easy as just taking the remote and putting them into the school because we know there's going to be some families that choose remote and we're going to have to keep those classes whole. Depending on family choice, we must create another in-person class, a remote class, in parent partnership, as I just said. All of them will have different teachers, so each class will have their own teacher. As I said earlier, some students will have to change teachers. However, we're going to try to minimize that and be real transparent on that process. The form will be available on Skyward tomorrow. And right now it's coming up on your screen as a shared screen. This form will be coming up tomorrow, September 30th, and will be closed on Monday, October 5th. So as you can see on there, it's pretty straightforward with your student's name, teacher, your name, and then down at the bottom it says choose an option, attend every day in learning person at your neighborhood school. And that means your school that you typically go to, okay? Continue with our current 100% online learning model. Continue with the parent partnership, which includes in-person 1 day a week through the parent partnership, or continue with our parent partnership 100% learning model. That's the exact form that you're going to see tomorrow morning on Skyward. Okay? So now, the remaining information of tonight's talk will be the information that you need to make that decision. I've gotten these topics from the many calls that we've received here at Snohomish School District asking questions about things. You need to clarify this before I can make a decision. You need to clarify whatever. And so we're going to try to answer a lot of those questions. Also know we're putting a lot of information on our website, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. First of all, let's talk about safety. Our number one safety is that when kids come back pre-K second grade, is that we keep them in cohorts. Cohorts are groups together that they don't mingle with everybody in the school. We're defining a cohort as a grade level. So in other words, first grade will be a cohort, second grade will be a cohort. You get the picture. We know by keeping them close that the kids will still be able to have lunch, go to recess, be in their classes, go to special services on the grade level, and still be in that cohort. I want to be careful to say that although we're going to put this and do as much as we can to keep the integrity of that cohort together, there may be times where they're going to cross paths with someone else, and we know that's going to occur. But we're going to do our hardest to keep them into that cohort. It's important. And where that comes importance is a little later on when we talk about a COVID response. Masks. We're requiring that everybody in the building wear a mask. We know that it's been getting more and more part of our culture, more a habit as we do it in public right now. But we know in order to really follow the guidelines that everybody's going to have to wear a mask. Teachers, staff, students, everyone is going to have to wear a mask. 6-foot rule. This is one that's caused a lot of conversation, is a 6-foot rule. And we're going to bring up a picture of the classroom. Right now, we have a couple classrooms set up on what it looks like to be in a 6-foot classroom. There it is, right there. There's all the desks set across. This happens to be a Little Cedars Elementary. As you can see, there's a lot of space between the desks, but it looks like a well-lit, very comfortable classroom. You see a lot of the stuff in there that you would typically see in a classroom. We know, however, that kids will be crossing paths. We know that they're going to be closer than 6 feet. We know that the teachers are going to be walking down the aisles helping kids. We know the kids, when they go out into the hallway or go use the restroom, that's going to be there. We know that close contact is defined not only about the 6-foot rule, but how long they're in contact with one another. And we know we're talking with the health department that that's really acceptable. However, when a child's spending their time, they need a base that's 6 feet away from each other. I will say that we are really going to start working with our staff and our teachers to really define what that looks like, because we've heard some questions. You know, how can we teach in a 6-foot area when these kids are so used to just being together and being on a carpet and just being kids? Well, we're going to have to take a look at that through a different lens, because we believe being in school is the most important thing to do for our kids. We're just going to have to do things a little bit differently. We've asked Dr. Mickelson and her teaching and learning group to really start that conversation with our teachers to give great ideas on how this can be done and yet keep that 6-foot separation. It's an important part of keeping our kids safe, okay? The next thing is ventilation. And I'm going to turn this over to Ralph Rohr, the Executive Director of Facilities, because I want him to talk a little bit about ventilation. We've been receiving a lot of questions on how our schools are ventilated, the filtration, all of that. And Ralph's a good one to explain this. Ralph?
Good. Well, good evening. So yes, ventilation's an important issue in making sure our schools are safe. So in advance of students and staff coming back to the building, we begin inspecting and reviewing our ventilation systems throughout the district. And we've been working to improve ventilation quality and to meet the new standards for ventilation that we've received from both industry standards as well as from the health districts. There are two key components associated with improved ventilation, and they are filtration and fresh air supply into the rooms. So regarding air supply, this summer we started changing out all the filters in the schools. And this time, instead of changing out with the standard filters that we normally get, we went with the higher quality filtration standards and replaced all of our filters with those higher standards, and those are in place now. We also did that for the portables, and that work is still in progress. Regarding air supply, that is a key in terms of the indoor air quality. And what health experts have said is the amount of fresh air supply into the room improves air quality and provides for what we need to keep the kids safe in terms of their area. So we have reset the building air supply systems to provide the maximum fresh air supply that they can provide. That requires us to make a few modifications to some of the school's control systems so that we can increase that fresh air supply to those rooms. We have been told by the health district we should also be opening windows as necessary to make sure we have fresh air in our spaces. And additionally, we've taken another step to provide what we call a flush out at night after the occupants have left, where we turn the building heating and ventilation system on and bring in complete outside air and flush the building out before the next morning. For portable classrooms where we have little to no manual control of that fresh air, we've decided that the best thing we can do is provide fans for those rooms as well as portable air purifiers, which we have supplied each one of those rooms. So in short, the key to good ventilation is high quality filtration and lots of fresh air into our classrooms. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Ralph. We were lucky enough, and I'm going to call kudos out to Ralph, is that ventilation was mentioned just briefly a few months ago, back in June in the early spring, late spring, early summer. And Ralph really jumped on it then, knowing that it's going to be a big deal. And it is a big deal. Well, it went quiet for a few months, and now all of a sudden it's upon us. Well, Ralph jumped on it early enough that we've got this handled to the level of specifications that we've been told to have, and that our kids are in a safe spot. I want to continue to the next one after ventilation and talk about cleaning, because I want Ralph to talk about cleaning also, because that's important as we prepare every day for our kids. So Ralph, you want to talk about cleaning?
Sure, thank you. Well, so the operations department, which includes custodial services, have been updating our protocols and procedures to reflect our local and state health district standards for this time frame. The focus has been on disinfection and the frequency of disinfection during the day. Custodians have been trained on the new disinfection protocols, and we've been reviewing those over the past 2 months to make sure we're all current with what the expectations are during the day when staff and students are in the building. Key to disinfection is during the day, at multiple times during the day, we disinfect what we call the high touch points across the building. And some of those high touch points include doorknobs, panic bars, handrails, light switches, public area countertops. So those are a few. In addition, restrooms are disinfected during the day, particularly the touch points within restrooms. If we have manual faucets, we deal with the faucet handles, those kinds of things within the restrooms. And lunchroom surfaces are disinfected before lunches, after each lunch period, and then, of course, at the end of the day. In addition, we provide disinfectant supplies to each classroom into the office area so they have them at their disposal when they're needed on a moment's notice. Lastly, we use a variety of EPA registered and approved chemicals for disinfection that fight against the COVID-19. And we use the different chemicals based upon the application condition. So in a very quick overview, that is our process for making sure we disinfect our facilities.
Thanks, Ralph. As you can see, it's a change from where we were before, where it's continually done throughout the day. There are questions rolling in, and some of them we'll get to when their topic comes up, but there is one about masks. We've been directed with the guidance that truly masks are the safest way to bring kids back full time. At one point, we talked about face shields instead of masks, and the guidance we received was to consider that. Recent guidance says it's masks. So pre-K 2 kids that are coming back will wear masks. Of course, there's always exceptions to that, and those are in the law, whether that's students with specific health needs or things like that. We'll cover those individually, but in general, masks is what's going to be accepted. We're going to move on. So that was safety. And know that we also have a safety pamphlet, and that safety pamphlet's 20-some pages long. It's specific to our school. Ralph created this pamphlet, and it's on our website. So make sure you go there and you'll get a lot of your questions answered about safety and really walk you through what we're doing to keep our kids safe. The next one, number 2, I want to talk about is screening, because this is just as important. Screening, whether or not kids feel safe or feel healthy enough to come to school. The first one is attestation. Attestation is asking the questions of whether or not you have symptoms. And there's been a lot of questions around this. When is that going to be done and who's going to do it? We're working with a company and we're working to have a process in place that this is done at home before the kid comes to school. We feel that you as parents know your child best, and you can talk to your kindergartner or your pre-K or your first grader and really know how they feel. And if you go through the steps of like the 6 or 9 short questions of how you're feeling and they're good to go, then you send them to school. Once they get to school, we'll have that information. It'll be done electronically. We'll have that information. And then if any child, for whatever reason, may not get the attestation done at home, then they'll do it at school, and we'll take their temperature. And then if everything's good, of course, they can come back to school. One thing I want to be clear about, this will not happen at the bus stop. There was a lot of comments and really a lot of discussion on our end. Should it be done at the bus stop or not? But we quickly realized that that is a time taker on a road, and it just can't happen. And so we know that we're going to do it with the parents at home and then really follow up with at school. Students with symptoms, whether they come to school with symptoms or develop the symptoms during the day, I think it's really important. And parents, this is really big, because this is something that we want to keep our schools as healthy and safe as possible, that if your child has symptoms, that they stay at home until those symptoms are gone. But if they develop them at school, or for some reason they have them when they come to school, know that you're going to be called immediately and asked to come and get your child. Even if it's close to the end of the day and say, hey, they can stay there for a while. No, we truly want you to come and get your child, not only to create the safest place where we are, but it's best for the child to be taken care of and taken home and checked out and taken care of. So know that that's what's going to happen. The next one, so we've gone over safety, we've gone over screening. Now let's talk about COVID response. What happens if someone comes in close contacts? What happens if someone tests positive or tests negative? I'm going to admit to you, this gets pretty complicated, because if you test positive and you do this, and there's a bunch of steps of what happens, that you can either go, go be quarantined for a certain number of days, or you can go get tested. If that's clear, then something else happens. What I'm going to guide you to is really to that safety manual that I mentioned earlier, that's going to be on that is on our website. And that clearly explains all the situation that happens and what would happen to your child, how long they would be out, and when they could come back. Also go to our frequently asked questions page, as we're going to have a lot of those answers right on that page there. So I really, really want to direct you to those. I will tell you this, because this is one of the questions that we had. The one thing that we don't want happening is for a school to open and then close, and then go back to remote and then come back in person. I'm not guaranteeing that won't happen, but in working with the Snohomish Health District, this is why we have cohorts. You know, it could happen that a child gets symptoms and has to be sent home. That could happen. It could even happen that maybe there's a positive case within a classroom, and that small classroom has to go, or maybe even the cohort. But each one of these are getting to be less likely as we work through, if we can keep to all of our safety standards. And closing of school could happen, but is really far out there a long ways. We're hoping that working with the health department and all the safety protocols we have in place that we can keep that minimal if something should happen. Because the last thing that we want to do is close down and try to open up again. We hope, and we're really working, that once we bring our kids back, they're back for good. But we got to do this together. It's a partnership. I do want to mention, and if someone wants to jump in on this, either Miriam or Sean, questions are happening. What happens if my kid gets sick and they have to miss a few days? How are they going to maintain that learning environment? And, you know, I would like to think that it's just like a regular sickness that, you know, they're going to be helped by their teacher. But if you have anything to add, Sean, Miriam, go ahead and kick in right now.
Sure. Like was said, we're going to maintain normal processes for communication between teachers and parents for short-term sicknesses. For longer COVID responses that could have extended times out, we're beginning to work on plans of how to support learning. Learning will continue, whether that's going back and forth between remote at that time to access that or continue it through work provided by the classroom teacher. That's a process that is being developed. The short-term ones will continue like we've always done. For ones where a student has to be out for an extended period, we will continue to work on that, but their learning will continue.
All right, thanks. Miriam, anything to add at all? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Good, thank you. I think that's really good as we move on. The next one I want to talk about is pick up and drop off. And then we're talking about parents bringing their kids back and forth. When you bring your child, students will be met at the curb and directed to the cohort entrance. We're asking all parents to stay in their car. Parents will not have the ability to walk their kids to class like they did before, but rather there's going to be someone there that gets your child from the car or directs them and goes to the right entrance for the cohort. If you do need to see a staff member or the principal or someone in the school, we just ask that you make a scheduled appointment. Also know that in a few of our elementary schools, we're readjusting or reconfiguring the drop-off pickup because we know that this is going to add more congestion to where parents come and pick up and drop off. Pickup, we're asking parents again to remain in their cars and the students will be brought to you. Buses. Buses are going to be out on routes available for all kids. Kids will get on the bus. They'll sit as far apart as they can. Kids will wear masks on the bus. If they do sit together, they will sit in family groups. Windows will be strategically open to create ventilation, and the buses will be cleaned after every run. So they'll be cleaned in the morning and again cleaned when they take kids at home. Student day. What will the student day look like? You know, there's a lot of details to the student day, and I see we're getting some questions on that. We're working through a lot of the details on that right now, but we will let you know as we work through these. We got 4 weeks to get to October 26th. We'll have a lot of these answered well in time for all of us to know the answer. But the student day, the beginning and end times will likely change. I believe right now they start at 8:30 and then go to the end of the day. We're going to have to adjust these time. Mainly because of transportation issues, because remember, we're going to start running the buses for these kids, but we're also looking to the future, wherever that's at, for secondary. And we know that our bus capacity, our transportation capacity is we can only do high school and elementary separately. We can't do them together. So we are looking forward and being visionary, saying, hey, when secondary students come back, how are we going to stagger these times? So the times for your days will likely change a little bit, and we'll know that real quick. So the day itself is we're trying to look. And one thing that I'm really trying to talk to you about today is talk about the experience your child is going to have in learning. I guarantee you your child's going to come to school. Your child's going to have their teacher. They're going to have their friends. They're going to do all the things. They're going to have their backpack. We're going to talk about breakfast. We're going to talk about lunch. We're going to talk about recess. All of those things are going to be essentially what they think of a school day, the same thing, just with different rules applied and different guidances in order to stay safe. Same with pick up and drop off and with busing. Let's talk about lunch. We're gonna get a screenshot of a picture of the Little Cedars gym. Now I understand Little Cedars has a bigger place with a common in the gym to feed kids, but I'll show you a little bit on how that works. So when Kim brings it up, we'll take a look at that. Lunch will be served in the gym or the common area. We've had conversations of should we have it in the classroom or should we have it in the gym? And really we came up with the gym because of ventilation, a bigger area, a lot better ventilation in the big areas. Kids can sit 6 feet apart. That's when they have to take off their masks to eat and drink, obviously. They'll eat in their cohorts. It's just a safer place for them to happen, for that to happen. Breakfast. At this point, we know breakfast will be provided. We're trying to work through the logistics of that, of when kids come and when they can eat. Know that we'll have those answers to you as soon as we have really thought about the process for breakfast. Cohorts. Or excuse me, recess. Recess is going to happen. You can't have school without recess. And there's a lot of good information about how recess can occur when you got to have your mask on and when you got to be 6 feet apart. We're going to do it in cohorts. In other words, first grade will have recess, second grade will have recess. There may come a time when we get all pre-K6 on campus that we might put 2 cohorts out on the field at the same time. But right now for pre-K2, it's going to be done in cohorts. No use of the big equipment. At this point, we're going to be flexible and see where we are, but at this point, no use of the big equipment. Not because of the sanitation issue, but because of the way kids gather in. But we're going to take a look at that and see what's best. There might be a way to do it later on. We don't know until we get kids in, until we really see what's going to happen. We are toying with the idea, and we're going to talk about it. Do kids have to wear their masks? Right now, we're saying they have to wear their mask, but is there a time when they can remove that mask? And we're thinking about that, or taking a look at that for recess. We've done a lot of research. If you go online, there's a lot of great games, because we've had folks talk to us and say, what's recess without playing? What's recess without being able to run around and play on the big equipment? Well, I think if we take a look at through the lens of safety, the lens of right now being 6 foot apart, the lens of having to wear your mask, because that's where we are, there's a lot that kids can do and still have the excitement of recess. Class setup. It's set up for safety. You saw a picture of it, 6 feet apart. Students, we believe, are best served when they're in front of their teacher. Now, we know there's the decision here of to be remote and to be under parent partnership, and those are best for your families. But we've said all along, we want to get kids back into the building, and we're going to set it up so where we can get kids back into the building and the classroom set up for that. Class sizes will be dictated by safety protocol. When kids are 6 feet apart, about how many desks can we fit in a room without having being jam-packed? And we know that we can get between 18 and 20 desks in a room, maybe 21 in some of our bigger classes, because we do have bigger classes. And so we're going to take a look at that. Schools are also limited by the number of classrooms they have, so we really got to work around classroom setup. Teaching strategies. We're working together as a team, and Dr. Mickelson and her teaching and learning, we're really going to start that conversation of how can we teach with the 6 foot rule. I've heard a lot and from you that's saying, how are we going to keep a little kid 6 feet apart and sitting in their desk for 6 hours? That's a great question. Well, we know that they're not going to be in their desk for 6 hours. There's a lot of transitioning. There's a lot of things they can do. Is that going to be their home base where they go and sit and maybe do their work? Sure it is. But there's other things that we know we can do to get them up, to get them transitioning, to keep that distance apart, but yet still have a learning environment that they're excited to be with their friends and excited to be with their teachers. We also know what teaching strategies, we're going to have to work on hand washing and give plenty and ample time for hand washing. I know I heard someone say and ask me, what are we going to do? We're going to teach or teach hygiene? Well, it's a little bit of both. If we want to keep this safe and keep our kids in, we're going to have to talk about hand washing. The last thing that I want to talk about is staff safety, or excuse me, staff support. When they come back in, when your students come back in, the teachers are going to have time and they're going to be trained in all the safety protocols that we have. Safety protocols not only for your students, but also for themselves. Staff are going to be well trained in knowing what to do and how to handle kids and how to keep them at the safe distance, and hand washing and masks and recess and everything that we're going to do. They'll be well versed in that. They'll also be well versed in really brainstorming together. There are professionals, there are experts. What's this going to look like once we bring these kids back in the class? Through Dr. Mickelson's help and their brainstorming, there's going to be wonderful things happening in the classroom. But we're going to provide the time and the training for that to happen. Also, equally important, the district is going to continue to be flexible and communicate to make adjustments if necessary. We're not going to be able to get through this if we don't take a time to reflect to say, how can we adjust, listen to our folks, listen to you, look at our kids to see what's going to happen and how we can make things better. With that, hopefully that gave you a lot of the information you needed in order to make your decision. Again, this is a taped session that you can go back and watch. There's a lot of information online. That safety pamphlet, a lot of stuff going on. Continue to ask us questions. Right now, I'm going to go through some of the questions that were asked in the chat room to see if we can answer some of them. There's one about special education, Dr. Wolverton. Can you talk about that? The question is wondering if more SPED kids will come back or just pre-K through the 2nd grade?
So right now, we already have some students. We actually right now have about 200 students coming for in-person services on a hybrid model. The K2 students are coming back, pre-K2 are coming back just like their peers all day, every day. The 3rd through 6th grade students who are currently coming 2 mornings a week, when we bring back K through 2, they're going to come back 5 mornings a week. So that current group of 3rd through 6th graders who are now coming 2 days a week, 2 mornings a week, will be coming 5 mornings a week. They are going to go home midday. We're going to not change the secondary until we get more guidance from Dr. Spitters.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Some other questions that we have. People want, let me see. At 2nd semester, will kids already doing in-person keep the teacher that they had in the 1st semester? By all means, when we take a look now, I'm going to say yes. Once they're in that physical class in person, they'll keep it as through the year. I hesitate to ask that because who knows what's going to happen in our lives, but right now, all of our planning is to keep them in there. If a student tests positive, will the whole class or cohort have to be quarantined for 10 to 14 days? That's something we're going to work with the Snohomish Health Department, and something that is really explained in that pamphlet that we have, because there's a lot of details of when a person goes into quarantine and how long, 10 or 14 days. People want to know what grades are starting what days, because I said there's going to be 3 entry points. There's going to be Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday. We're working with our principals to pick those days, and we'll let you know soon. Because some people think, well, maybe pre-K will start on Monday, and then 1st grade on Thursday, and 2nd grade the following Tuesday. Well, we had a good discussion that maybe we want to start with 2nd grade first and test out all of these things we have on a group of kids who already know the rules of school to see if our new systems work before we bring in the younger kids who don't have that experience. So at this point, we really don't have that decision made, but that's what we're thinking. It can go either way, but we're going to work with our principals to make that decision. Let me take a look. How big is a typical cohort? It depends on how many kids are going to be there. It's going to be a grade band. So in some of our smaller schools, it might be as small as 40 or 50 kids. Some of our larger schools, it might be upwards of 80 to 90 kids. Depends on how big the class and how many kids come back from remote to in-person. Again, masks on a bus. Yep, we're going to have masks on the bus. All right. I'm just going to ask one more time for Miriam or Sarah or Sean. Is there anything that I missed that you would like to add to this? Ralph, I'm sorry, you're also in on the conversation. Anything you want to add to this as we bring back and talk about the experience of our kids? All right, just a couple of things as we end. Number one, I know this is a time of turmoil and a time of challenge as we bring our kids back. But we truly do believe it's for the best for our kids to really offer this opportunity. We truly believe that we can keep kids safe, but we also know that we're following the guidance of the Snohomish County Health Department. If something should happen between now and October 29th, that they give us guidance that we have to delay that date, we're going to do so. And we'll do so by making that decision and communicating with you as soon as possible. But right now, all indicators is that it is going to be open for us to bring back pre-K2 on those dates. We're excited to do so. I truly want to thank you very much for partnering with the education of your child. We say that every year, but this year, all the more important is I know they're sitting in your homes, sitting on that computer, and you're part of their education. I know that through transparency, communication, and working together, we will become more united and be a stronger system. A lot of people say to me, hey, I can't wait to get back to normal. I want to say back to them, hey, I can't wait to get back to better. There's going to be a lot of things that we draw out of this pandemic and education that we're going to use to be better in the future. And I know that's going to make us a better system for your kids. And lastly, I just encourage you to stay engaged, and I know you will. Continue to ask questions, continue to share concerns, shoot off those emails, talk to your principals, send us emails, and just keep us going and keep us in mind as you make your decisions. So thank you very much. I appreciate the night tonight. We had as high as about 700 people show up tonight, which is really, really good. Have a good evening, and we'll be working together to bring those kids back the week of October 26th. Thank you and have a good night.